Welcome to Torah Smash, the podcast for nerdy Jews, where our lives of Jewish learning collide with our love of nerd culture. In each episode, we discuss what we lovingly call a Torah Smash, which we have defined as a beautiful collision of one thing from the world of Judaism with another from nerd culture. I am Barak Malkin, and joining me today are...
Ethan Lane Miller.
RDY.
So it seems that I really enjoy creating smashes based on the upcoming holiday calendar. Last year, we talked about how the four characters of South Park were theorized to be based off of the four children in the Passover Seder. You should go back and check it out if you are curious where we landed on that. And this year, I'm going to have us dive into a more popularized connection from the Passover story. The character of Moses is arguably the most famous character in Jewish history. In fact, the Torah, what many refer to as the Old Testament, is also known as the 5 books of Moses, because the Torah is really framed around this character. We know a lot of Moses' life, but what I'd like to mostly focus on is his birth and origin story as a leader. And so I ask you, based on Moses' life, what popular superhero will we be talking about today?
I mean, I think RDY and I are both excited to guess. RDY, go first.
Let's do it together. 3, 2,
2, 1. Superman.
Please don't.
Yes. No. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit in one of our very first episodes, but today I would really love to take a deeper dive into the connections between Moses and Superman. So,
I really feel like you stole my choice topic
of life.
Yeah, this is I taught about this yesterday.
Oh, that's so funny.
For what? For what reason? Tell us about it.
We do a monthly program called Brain Food at the synagogue because you're not allowed to say lunch and learn anymore. So we rotate, the three of us teach. And yesterday was my turn to do the monthly teaching. And I did it on superheroes and Judaism.
Oh,
and
super fun.
And so the Superman origin story was one of the first.
Yeah, absolutely. And
cool.
So early on, I think it was episode 4, I believe, where we also discussed Superman's story connections to the American Jewish immigration experience, pulled from Superman's creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. What I would love to do is revisit this topic, and for the first half of this episode, really connect the dots between Superman's origin and Moses' origin. Sound good?
Love it.
Let's hit some Exodus.
Yeah, let's do it. For Jason, Exodus is the... No, the Exodus is Jason.
Come on, Jason, step up.
All right, so we can walk through this. Feel free to interrupt me at any point. Both of them born in dangerous times, right? Moses, Jewish people being killed. Superman, Krypton is going to explode. Both sent by their parent in a basket. Moses, a literal basket. Superman, a ship basket type of thing. Raised in an environment that is alien to their heritage. In Superman, literal alien to the heritage. Moses receives a call from God to use his powers to liberate his people from tyranny. And Superman receives a message from his father to help the people of Earth. Both of them don't want the responsibility to lead. Moses fully rejects the idea of being the leader of the people, and Superman is extremely hesitant to have the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Depending on the origin, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's definitely like a movie-based Superman reference. In the comic books, in his inception, Superman was just out there saving the day, like well before origin stories were a thing that we just kind of culturally knew. The origin story that is generally accepted, yes, he goes to the Fortress of Solitude and consults with his father via quote-unquote computer programming, Kryptonian tech.
Yeah. Well, we can also... maybe I'll expand it to say that there's many versions of Superman where he, unsure of who he is, just like Moses, goes out to explore his purpose in the world prior to the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah,
right. I just reread Superman Clashes with the Klan, and in that one he spends the first few issues traveling the world and meeting the people and figuring out what he's supposed to do with his powers, if not like on an individual basis. What does that mean for the planet? Both of them wear their baby blanket as adults, Moses as his shawl and Superman as his cape. Both of their nemeses were like a brother to them growing up. Moses with the Pharaoh, Superman with Lex Luthor. As a lot of, not every story, but a lot of them, Lex Luthor and he knew each other in high school or slightly prior to.
It raises the stakes when Superman and Lex Luthor are friends in high school and that kind of thing. There's one origin story where like Lex Luthor is bald because he's experimenting with chemicals in his shed, and Superman sees the smoke, or Clark Kent sees the smoke, and he like uses his super breath to blow it out, and it blows chemicals in Lex's face, and Lex Luthor blames Superman for him being bald, and that's how they become nemesis.
Nemesi?
Nemesim.
Nemesises.
Yeah, that's definitely the right one.
That's canon from now on.
Yeah. Right. So both were like brothers to the nemesises. Moses means, I found in the Egyptian translation, I found that it means savior / delivered from the water. I think it's just delivered from the water though.
So this is where it gets weird. So in Hebrew, the word is more related to drawing from the water. Give me a sec while I search for the verse. Okay. So in the Hebrew, Moses is explained meaning I drew him out of the water. It says kimin hamayim, that's because from the water, mishitihu. So I drew him from it being the water.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Mashi is where they get from Moshe.
Okay.
But that's Hebrew. In Egyptian, it's more complicated. I don't know the Egyptian alphabet, so I don't know how to name those letters. But the ones that transliterate to MSS, as in Moses, mean like was my father. So Ramesses, who has that MSS ending, it means like son of Ra. And so Moses, with nothing before it, means fatherless or orphan.
Oh, that's nice.
That's really clever.
That's very cool. And then we can go to the Superman side for his translation, which not related, but it's very fun that Kal-El means voice of God. But in preparation for this episode, I did find out that originally his name was spelled Kal-L, not EL, just L. And later it was, I forget which writer had changed the translation so that it would be pronounced in this way, changed it to Kal-El and Jor-El as opposed to just the letter L. And so now we have this theorized piece. Yeah.
This origin is another one of those things where like there's theory and there's evidence and there's Occam's razor. And like one of the things that Schuster and Siegel said in an interview and have repeated is that Superman is categorically not based on Moses. And however, these two boys who grew up in Cheder, Jason Cheder is like a religious school upbringing where you go to this school to learn Jewish stuff as well. Like it's the old equivalent of Hebrew day school. So they grow up in Cheder. They're very steeped in their Judaism as children. And even if they reject the religious aspects of it and become secular Jews later in life, you cannot deny that the stories they grew up with influenced their writing.
Right.
So by that same token, if you take the word kol in Hebrew, which is written with what's called a kamatz katan, this is where it gets complicated. So kamatz katan looks like it says ah, but actually it says o. So if you have a very rudimentary ability to decode Hebrew without really being a fluent Hebrew reader, you might misread Kol-El, the words that mean all God, as Kal-El.
Oh, so this is a fun, let's make a little tweak to make this connection.
I think so. And I
should teach a class on this.
You should find me yesterday. And I think that again, where it may be coincidence, it may be intent, it may be like, oh, hey, let's find the Hebrew words for all God and just kind of put it in there because no one will know what it says because Jews are, this small percentage of the world. and then they ended up mistransliterating it, but still all of us Jews caught it.
I've always heard that Kal-El means voice of God. Where does that come in?
That is it's another Kol, but that Kol is spelled differently and would be a lot less likely to be confused with Kal.
Oh, it's even more of a stretch.
Yeah, Kol means voice, and another Kol means all, but they're spelled differently. And I'm sure at one point they were pronounced just differently enough.
Got it. Okay, great. I only have a few more pairings here. Both never really fits in that with the people that they're leading, both of them. Moses identifies as an Egyptian and as a Jew. And similarly, Superman identifies as a Kryptonian and as an Earthling. It's a big identity struggle that they have until they decide that they're both. And we talked about this a little bit, but goes into the wild to run away and to eventually discover himself. Both of them have that as well. Any fun connections I missed that you guys would want to mention?
I mean, I am having a fun time learning, so no, I'm going to defer to RDY to add something.
Yeah, I've got 3.
Good.
So one is, you mentioned, I'm going to expand. One is an expansion. Great. You mentioned the baby blanket.
The RDY's expansion pack. Great.
RDY's expansion pack. You mentioned the baby blankets, that they're both dressed in their baby blankets. Yeah. I had never heard that Moses was also turned it into his shawl. I think that's cool. It's probably midrashic, but I love it. But the idea of wearing the symbol of their people. So the S, which, yes, of course, stood for S at the beginning of Superman's journey, but now is known as a Kryptonian symbol, which may or may not mean hope. And that wearing of the Kryptonian symbol has always reminded me of wearing like a thigh necklace or a Jewish star necklace or something like that, or even like a youth group t-shirt. The second thing is that this is something that we mentioned when we were talking with Fabrice Sapolsky, when we were talking about the Kill Bill monologue at the end of the movie, how Superman has to dress up to not be Superman. Moses was the same way. He had to dress up to be an Egyptian. And I would say the same is true about modern Jews. We have to dress up to blend into society. And the third thing, and I'm going to give the two of you a little visual treat as I talk about this. And so apologies, because I acknowledge this is an audio medium, but
listeners, oh man, you are missing a beautiful image right now. So he'll describe it, I'm sure.
I want to talk about Superman's cape. Edna Mode's opinions aside.
No capes.
No capes. Superman's cape is iconic. It is one of the things that makes him Superman. He would look really weird if he was just in blue spandex. But his cape is different from the cape of other superheroes. Most superheroes, when they wear their cape, like Robin or Doctor Strange or Captain Marvel, the Shazam one, not the Marvel one, their capes are clasped. Characters like Batman, his cape comes off of his cowl. And that's what makes Superman different from all these other characters that have their capes connected to their costume or clasped around them. Superman's cape comes down into 2 points in front of him and almost looks like it's tucked in to his quote unquote shirt, but there are no lumps to show that it's tucked in. So it's clearly just kind of hanging down in 2 points. So hanging down in 2 points with the rest of it flowing behind him, Superman's cape is a talit.
I love that. Yeah, you had mentioned that in episode 4, and it's a great connection. Very unique. Any other interesting things we didn't talk about with him?
I mean, there's so much to talk about with Superman. But
anything related to Moses and the Exodus story?
The idea of being a savior, which gets played down in the way we practice Passover, for example. But they are both the heroes of the narrative, and it is their story that inspires so many others.
Yeah, totally agree. That was a fun dive. And so, but we're only halfway through this episode. Brock, what else could we possibly talk about with Moses and Superman?
See, I feel like I don't need to be here. Like Barak's just talking to himself now. And
so, well, then speak up a little bit. Share your thoughts.
I'm learning. I'm like the audience.
Oh, okay, great. I'll tell you, I know people who comment and message me and they say that they yell at me all the time when they're listening to the episode. So feel free to yell at me too, Ethan.
Wait, about what?
Just stuff that they want to share. They just want to talk to us, man.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
listener,
really nice.
if you're talking to us, please send us an email. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah. All right. So for the second half of this conversation, here's a question I'd like to pose. If Moses is Superman, then which biblical characters are the other members of the Justice League? So there's a lot of members of
I
the Justice
love
League.
this so
Yeah,
much.
we're going to love this. I have ideas for each of them, but I'd love all of yours. So I'll list out the characters that I have, and we can go whatever order you want. Batman, Green Lantern, Flash, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Green Arrow, Aquaman, Cyborg. Where do we want to start?
I almost want to work backwards a little bit, like almost start with biblical people and then start assigning them.
Oh, sure. Well, unless RDY, you had somebody you want to start with?
Well, I was thinking like Cyborg seems like a golem.
Does he? How come?
I mean, we'll have to ask Rabbi Josh Fixler on this one, but
Is Cyborg a golem?
is Cyborg a golem? But the mechanical parts mixed with the living parts.
You want to know where I pulled for this, or do you have more?
Of course.
So when I thought about each of the characters, I tried to figure out who are they at their core as a personality, as a character, at their traits. So Cyborg is killed and then rebuilt as something different. So for me,
Jesus Christ.
Please don't say Jesus. It's
for Jason,
edit.
Jesus Christ was Jewish.
For Chava, Jesus.
No, so I went with Joseph. Joseph was believed to have been killed and then received this new coat of arms, we'll call it, in which he, sort of developed these different powers and became this totally different person.
Okay.
I buy that.
RDY's face said he doesn't buy it.
No, I do like that. I'm also thinking through all the different characters and I want to know like who's going to be best at which.
Yeah.
Who is the absolute lamest like the worst biblical character that we can think of so we can assign Aquaman?
Oh no, that's not where I went. Come on, Aquaman. Who's gonna in the Bible?
Yeah, I know
gonna
Jonah.
be?
Yeah.
No, I went with another one.
Oh yeah,
Go with Jonah.
Yeah.
Noah.
I went with Noah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Definitely sort of the captain of
characters.
Yeah, definitely sort of the captain of the seas kind of character.
Jonah gets swallowed by a whale, so you would think that would be more of an Aquaman-y thing.
And is sort of like transported via whale.
And he's totally lame, like Aquaman.
I went with a different Justice League character for Jonah because Jonah is pretty young and impulsive, which are the character traits of the Flash.
The Flash.
Yeah. So that's where I put Jonah as somebody who runs. He runs away.
Yeah.
Right. And then and is pretty young and impulsive based on his decision making that we see.
So I have a Green Lantern idea.
Yeah.
Now, Green Lantern uses his imagination to build whatever he can think of using the power of his ring.
Yeah.
And there are two characters in the Bible who work together who kind of do all of these different miracles. And just like Green Lantern isn't a character, it's a station, it's an assignment, it's a rank.
Yeah.
And there are different iterations of Green Lantern, but they have, the same base power. These two characters do a lot of the same things.
So you've got like a Hal Jordan and a John Stewart lined up for us?
Famously Jewish John Stewart.
Yeah, different John Stewart. This one categorically not Jewish. So the two biblical characters I'm thinking of are Elijah and Elisha.
Okay.
They do all these amazing miracles. They split the Jordan River and walk across on dry land. They make oil pour from a jug, like until the person pouring runs out of things to contain it. They both bring a little boy back to life or back from the brink of death. And, all of these miracles happen that are under their power. So I think of them as Green Lantern. But if we wanted to do one, for Green Lantern and one for somebody else. There is a scene where Elijah has just defeated all of these Baalite priests. He has called down God to accept a sacrifice with one sentence, whereas these other 300 priests couldn't do anything from like morning until noon. And all of their calling and screaming and dancing, and they're like cutting themselves with knives and all this stuff. And so Elijah just goes, God, help me out. And God accepts the sacrifice. And so the priests like all start going down to tell the queen what he has done. And he like hikes up his skirts and runs past them. Like he gets imbued with this super speed power. So in that moment, Elijah is the Flash, but he is definitely a little too mature at that point to fit the nature of the character that you were describing.
Yeah. Wait.
In
So
which case, Alicia would be Green Lantern.
So I know Elijah. I don't know Alicia. Can you give a little more background on that character? Who is
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I was going to ask
Alicia-
too.
Yeah, Alicia was Elijah's protege. In the Book of Kings, Elijah finds Alicia and says, I need you to come with me because I'm going to anoint you to be God's prophet when I'm gone. And Alicia's like plowing in the field, and he just goes, yeah, sure, hold on a second. And he goes and he like slaughters the oxen that he's plowing with and feeds the people with it. And then he goes, okay, I'm ready. And and basically follows Elijah around. And then when it's time for Elijah to go be with God, Alicia takes on Elijah's mantle, and like all of Elijah's followers are like, we got to go find his body. And Alicia's like, you can go, but you're not going to find it. And
It's become one with the Force.
yeah, well, Elijah goes up to God in a fiery chariot drawn by fiery horses.
That's fun.
So see also end of Matrix. And so it's Alicia who takes over at that point, and he takes Elijah's mantle and he like does this Indiana Jones whip crack and parts the Jordan River again.
Oh, I like this as a Green Lantern descendant thing. Way better than my poll. I had chosen King Solomon with his ring as the Green Lantern character, because there's a few different stories about King Solomon's ring, some more mystical and Jewish mysticism, Kabbalistic than others. But that was the best one that I'd found. So I like yours a lot better, that Elijah and Alicia are the Green Lantern core of the Bible.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out who in the Torah has a lot of money and also dead parents.
I see, and I was thinking about World's Greatest Detective.
Oh, okay. That's
This
a
is
really good angle to take
This
too.
is my favorite one of this whole list. So I'm going to let you both.
Let's go first.
Yeah, go first. Go first.
God, I don't know.
And this is, we're doing this on the spot without a lot of time to think about it.
We can jump back. We can leave Batman for last and finish up the rest of the Justice League to give you some more time.
I like that idea. I like that idea.
I have a thought for Batman. I'm going to hang on to it and see if I still like it when we get to the end.
Awesome. I have an idea for Green Arrow.
Yeah.
There's a scene where King David is in hiding and running away from King Saul.
Mm-hmm.
And Saul's son, Jonathan, who is King David's best friend / lover, is shooting arrows in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Jonathan talks to the young squire who is collecting the arrows clues David in that he needs to run away. So I would say Green Arrow is Jonathan.
Interesting, because of the use of arrows.
Because of use of the arrows.
Yeah. I narrowed Green Arrow down to Archer and a Playboy, essentially. Let me ask you this, RDY. What if I change the word Archer to Hunter? Hunter and a Playboy. Do you have any thoughts on who that might be?
Esau?
Yeah, that's what I went with Green Arrow. He is described as the hunter, and he's estimated in the end to have 3 or 6 wives.
Yeah, he's got none of whom make his parents happy.
Yeah, right.
You got the player part figured out there, Barak.
Yeah. So the hunter thing, maybe he used bows and arrows and they're just not as descriptive. But Esau's my pick, but I don't hate this Jonathan thing. I just didn't know him enough as a character to be able to name him outside of just bow and arrow use.
It's hard to, Jonathan is definitely a playboy. He's a prince.
Mm.
So he's got that ability, but he reads as an LGBTQ character as well.
Mhm.
So there seems to be romance between Jonathan and David in the way they relate to each other. And that's another reason I think it's important to like laud Jonathan as a character and say, like, let's give him a role in the DC universe.
Yeah, I'm happy
God,
to
I'm learning
slap-
so much on this episode, guys. I love this.
Yeah, that's good. I like that one. Who we got left? We got Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter.
That's hard for me. That's the one I'm struggling with the
Which one?
most.
Martian Manhunter?
Yeah.
Here's the isolated description I have for him. See if it guides you anywhere. Full of empathy and wisdom, very kind, and pretty much like, because of his psychic abilities, is connected to everyone. I'd also dare to say that with his abilities, he's like a secondary Superman.
Aaron?
I didn't go Aaron. I went with Abraham for his wisdom and his kindness of welcoming the guests into his tent. Abraham, we are all descended from him, so technically connected to everybody. And I would argue to say that Abraham probably second to Moses in popularity of character in the Torah.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I like that. I
Also very
like,
old. Martian Manhunter is very old as well, and Abraham's one of the other very old people.
Okay.
I also like the idea that, you know, he's from Mars
Mhm.
before he is alien. And Abraham's ideas were alien to everyone around him, and he made himself into a wanderer and an alien in his homeland. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, let me ask you this question on while we're here. Is Martian Manhunter is known for his dry sense of humor? Does Abraham have a dry sense of humor in any of the portions that you can think of?
No, I would say quite the opposite. I would say Abraham is kind of the wet sock.
That's a quote.
He's just very serious all the time, and you know, he's got a lot of work to do, and he's doing it.
I can say this, Martian Manhunter often is very serious, and he has moments of humor that people are like, did he just make a joke?
Yeah, he's like
Right.
Spock.
Yeah, ish, right? Yeah, very much so. Okay, so are we on board
I
for
realized
Abraham?
I need to say I was nodding, which didn't help our listeners. I was nodding.
We all okay with Abraham as Martian Manhunter?
I'm okay with Abraham and Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with Wonder Woman and then Batman as last.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really good order to go in, because we started with the greatest, with Superman.
Yeah.
So to work kind of semi backwards.
Yeah.
So I'm also struggling with Wonder Woman because it's like we don't exactly have. I mean, there are a lot of women in the Torah, but you know, which one of them would we say fits Wonder Woman?
Yeah, Wonder Woman is good. She's kind, and that doesn't change the power that she has.
I almost want to say Miriam, just as like an example of someone who, you know, Moses gets some power, so there's a relationship there, and she doesn't, at least in my interpretation from what I've read, like she still stays who she is in the face of that changing family dynamic.
Sure.
I've always liked Miriam for Black Canary.
No, I'll take that one.
I didn't the singer and the you know, vocal powers, and Miriam known for being the singer.
Oh, that's very fun.
Yeah, I like that better. I withdraw my answer.
I didn't choose Miriam because I don't think she has the war strategy experience that Wonder Woman needs.
Yeah, and the idea in my head, I think, is being strengthened by your critique of Miriam as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I have two in mind, and they're in the same story. I was thinking Devorah and Yael.
Yeah, I went with Devorah.
Yeah. So Devorah famously tells the general of the army, who like comes to recruit her help, and she says, "I'll help you, but your glory is going to be received from the deeds of a woman." And he goes, "It's okay, we need you." So she doesn't say from me; she says from a woman. And that woman ends up being Yael, who, as the bad guy, Cicero, is running away. She says, "Oh, you look like you're tired. Come into my tent." And she gives him milk, which it doesn't say it's poisoned or drugged or anything, but there's an implication.
Mm-hmm.
And he falls asleep on her lap, and she drives a tent peg through his head.
This is Devorah you're talking about, right?
That's Yael.
Oh, that's Yael. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Devorah prophesies that the other side will be defeated by a woman, but she doesn't say it's her. And so it ends up being Yael.
Oh, interesting. I'm trying to think if there's a more vicious female Justice League character. I don't know how vicious Hawkgirl really is, if she'd qualify as a Hawkgirl character, but she's got a lot of war experience and more aggressive personality than, yeah.
For sure. She's super aggressive. I will say, can I tell a little side story about Hawk Girl?
Yeah.
So when my daughter was like 5 or 6, she was really into Hawk Girl for some reason. Like that was just the one she glommed onto and would constantly try to draw pictures of Hawk Girl. My daughter is a great artist. And she was using our Amazon show thing that we had just gotten as a gift from my mother. And she says, "Computer, show me pictures of Hawk Girl." And Alexa goes, "Looking up pictures of hot girls." And I was like, no.
Oh, that's so funny.
Amazing.
All right, so that brings us down to the last person that I've met. There's many more members of the Justice League. We can continue if we want. Listeners, please jump on our social media. Let us know what members of the Justice League we missed and who their biblical counterpoints would be. But we are down to Batman, the Dark Knight.
We're up to Batman.
Up to Batman.
Okay. Here's my answer, and roll with me on it.
Yeah. You said
I
roll
rolled. You got a nat 20.
Oh, nice. I'm going to say Adam for the reason that Batman, for a lot of people, is the entryway, is the first story into the DC universe. And so I'm picking Adam because that is part of the creation story of the Torah, and I think is just one of the first, if not literally the first name that like kind of pops out in Genesis.
Does Adam West have anything to do with that decision?
You know, I'd like to say yes, but no, it did not enter my thoughts. That's my vote.
RDY, do you have any guesses for Batman?
I am all over the place on Batman. And again, like just for the last, I don't know, we've been talking about this particular thing for 20 minutes or so. And just kind of racking my brain about Batman as the world's greatest detective and as the one who has like all of the gadgets and all the access to money and materials and supplies to do all the things that he needs to do. I think I'm going to go with Bezalel, which also would make Oholiab Robin.
I don't think I know either of these.
Okay. So in the building of the tabernacle, Bezalel is imbued with the spirit of God. And he's one of few people who like gets endowed with this spirit of God, Ruach Elohim. I've talked about it before. It's the superhero serum of the Bible. Bezalel is the artisan who knows how to work with all of the different materials to design and manage the construction of the tabernacle in the desert. And Oholiab is like his assistant who also has all of these skills. And it's always talked about like Bezalel is the greatest and has all this stuff, and also Oholiab. And this is also the same scene where as soon as they get kind of introduced, Moses says to the Israelites, "Okay, everybody bring all your best stuff. We need to be able to fund this." And they bring so much that Moses tells them to stop bringing gifts.
Oh, that's so on point for Batman. I like that.
So I'm going to say Bezalel as Batman and Oholiab as Robin as a bonus.
Oh, that's a nice one.
That's a super deep cut.
Here's this one. So this character, as far as we know, the parents are dead. They have a family member, not family member, person who's advising them behind the scenes. They have access to wealth and power and essentially have a secret identity. And they don't kill the bad guy. They let the law decide. And so the person that I went with, this was great. It was from an article that I found. The author's name was Phil Hall. They said that Batman would be Esther. Esther's parents are dead, makes Mordecai her Alfred. As royalty, she has access to the wealth and the power. She has her secret identity as the queen, and she doesn't kill the bad guy, right? The law decides what happens.
That's really good.
Yeah, I
like mine better, but his is really good.
No, I like both of them. Listeners, let us know who should be Batman, Esther or Bezalel.
God, that's really good. I really like that.
Yeah. All right. Before we close out, any characters, biblical or DC wise, that we did not mention that you'd like for us to figure out?
I'm thinking about Dr. Fate, who I've
Mhm.
always been a fan of, but I'm struggling to connect him to a biblical character because that whole like seeing the future.
Be Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph would be a good one. There's also a midrash that when God created light, it was a special kind of light that allowed us to see anything, anywhen, anywhere.
Mm.
And Adam and Eve kind of look through and they see the future of everything. Like
Mm.
they're looking at us right now
Oh,
in
that's
that
fun.
moment.
Oh my God.
And
Are you saying that Adam and Eve subscribe to our podcast?
probably, I mean, who
Oh,
wouldn't?
you heard it here
Uh,
first.
And so because they can see into the future in that midrash, I would say maybe the two of them are Dr. Fate, but
Oh, that's fun.
that was on one foot. I need time with this question.
Yeah, that's fine. You know what? I forgot. I had this bonus one listed. If we're talked about the Justice League, let's talk about some of the arch villains. And so, who would Lex Luthor be?
Barak.
Genius, wants a better
Oh,
world, wants
I
to
don't
be all
know.
powerful.
God.
Oh, that's a dangerous cut. Wow. But I would say that the Torah doesn't say God is doing it for God, though, right? Lex Luthor does it for Lex Luthor.
Well, the Torah doesn't say, but who knows?
Okay.
But yeah, there was definitely a tongue planted in cheek answer with
Yeah,
that cynicism and truth that
sure.
makes you wonder.
I went with Jacob for that one
Interesting.
as the
Mm.
smart person, wants a better space, but really wants to be, better space for himself with the deception of the birthright and other trickery that he did. Like, obviously very smart, but does those trickery for more power and more benefit for himself.
See, I was thinking Jezebel or Lex Luthor. So Jezebel is the queen who fights against Elijah,
Mm.
but she's the evil queen of that whole section of the narrative. And she's definitely like self-aggrandizing. She gets all the priests to be on her side. And
Does she have similar
it's,
magical powers, just like Elijah and Elisha?
well, she doesn't have powers, and it's the scene I described earlier that proves it.
Okay. Anybody else that we didn't touch on you want to touch on?
I've always been a fan of Gideon, who I usually would compare to Captain America, but since we're in the world of DC, I want to go back to Cyborg or
Shazam?
some other.
Captain Marvel?
No, I don't know about Captain Shazam. I don't think Gideon is like as powerful as some of our other heroes, but he's got strategy and a military mindset. So I'm struggling to think of a Justice League character who's like that.
Firestorm maybe has the intelligence?
Yeah, and Firestorm is kind of a combo of two.
Yeah, but Gideon is not.
Right.
I'm in my head trying to figure out who Booster Gold would be. Super conceited.
I've never heard that name before in my life.
Oh, Booster Gold. He's a wonderful superhero from the future that comes back and uses the future technology to make himself better than now. Sort of like Syndrome in The Incredibles, except successful at it.
Oh, cool.
So he comes back using future technology to become a superhero, but isn't really a superhero-ish. Just does it for like fame purposes.
Oh, that's a cool plot.
Yeah.
I like that.
You know, I wonder if we could use Hawkman as Gideon, as far as like the military, the fighter.
Yeah, that's true. I'll take that one. Awesome. So let me close by saying that, this Passover, when you're retelling the story of Exodus from Egypt, remember that heroes can come from almost anywhere. We read during the Seder about how I was freed from Egypt, and it becomes very personal to us. So let's do the same when we read about the superheroes in our life. And we can say, how I was brave, or how I helped someone. And that's how we can truly make the world a better place. And when you do that, if you're worried about kryptonite, don't worry, it doesn't exist. I will also,
Nice.
I need to give a shout out to that quote was by Shaquille O'Neal. He had said that, but it was
Famous Jew and superhero.
Yeah, it's good. But when this episode comes out, Passover will start between this episode and the next. So I think we should all wish our listeners a very happy Passover.
Happy Pesach.
Happy Passover. May it be sweet. May your Passover be kasher enough that it is still also sameach.
Very nice. Great. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Torah Smash. Our fiscal sponsor is Jewish Creativity International. Our theme music was created by Sean Fogel. You can check out Sean's bands and studio work at www.thesleepywest.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find us and is an excellent way to support the podcast. We want to hear from you and continue today's nerdy discussion. Go to torahsmash.com to find where to connect with us online, purchase swag from our store, support us with a donation, find previous episodes, and more. And as the elderly Moses said as he stood at the base of Sinai, about to make the long trek upwards, up, up, and oive! That would have been terrible.
Oh, you didn't record all the cool stuff we said already?
Oh, that was so good.
I was rolling my eyes.